Here are the 7 things you need to know before moving to Woodstock, Georgia. The first thing is that Woodstock is growing very quickly. In fact, many people are starting to move here more and more every year. Not just the population, but also like the quality of the schools are improving and the commercial areas. We're seeing more restaurants, more shopping. In general, it's just growing very quickly. And so this also leads to appreciation in the homes. Home prices are certainly going up all around Metro Atlanta, but especially in Woodstock as the city is growing and more people are moving there and the economy is growing here. Home values are definitely going up every year. And you haven't missed the boat. You certainly can still move there and get a great price on a home. And these home prices will increase in the next 5 to 10 years. But it's certainly something to think about. Like if you are considering making the move, you might not want to wait too long as they are really putting a lot of effort, energy, and money into the city of Woodstock. And this is driving up prices, driving up population. So it's becoming an even more popular place to live. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live here in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. The second thing that you should know about before moving here is about the downtown area. This is really like the main area of Woodstock. This is where like the best shops, the best restaurants are. Like the community really gathers mostly here in this downtown area. And it's kind of like centrally-ish located in Woodstock. And there's really one main road that goes through downtown Woodstock, Main Street. And it's like all of the stores and all of the restaurants are there on Main Street. And while this can get kind of problematic as there's very little parking. They've just recently started building a parking deck in that area. It does get super congested, but the majority of Woodstock doesn't look like this. Mostly Woodstock is a suburban area with lots of quiet neighborhoods and quiet back roads, and you're gonna have to like drive to the grocery store or whatever. But if you lived within walking distance of downtown Woodstock, and this is certainly possible, there are many homes and condos all around downtown Woodstock. And so that's a very different part of the city. I know many people ask me if there are parts of Metro Atlanta that are easily walkable. And while the majority of the suburbs are not easily walkable, you would have to be car dependent. It is possible to be close to the downtown part of Woodstock and walk to all of the different shops and restaurants there in downtown. The next thing you need to know about what it's like to move to Woodstock and buy a home here is the average home price. Right now, I just checked on the MLS in the last 3 months, the average sold price for a home here is about $445,000. Definitely lots of homes here in like the high 300s, and so very much still affordable, especially when you consider other parts of Metro Atlanta and definitely other parts of the country. But the sweet spot, the average is right there at about 445, 450 for a typical 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. About 2,500 square feet is typically the kind of home that you would find here in this city. And so there are certainly more affordable homes, new construction, anything built in the last 5 years or so, you're looking at closer to about 600,000. So for 450, you're looking at a home that's more like maybe 10 to 20 years old. And so certainly something to think about if you plan on buying a home here. And then the fourth thing that you should know before moving here is the amount of demand and the amount of competition there is among buyers here. The average amount of days that a home stays on the market here in Woodstock before going under contract is 19 days. This is a little higher than some of the other surrounding suburbs like Marietta or maybe Ackworth. So 19 days is a little less buyer demand than Marietta. This means you're not going to have as many multiple offer situations in Woodstock as you would maybe in the Marietta area. And then this is also a lot more time, a lot less buyer demand than you would see in like Alpharetta or maybe Swanee or Johns Creek. Those areas have a lot more buyer demand. So ultimately what this means is that you won't be fighting the crowds to buy a home in Woodstock, which is a huge plus, especially as home prices are increasing and interest rates are still a pain in the ass, and you want to try to make that home buying experience as easy as possible. we're seeing a really good amount of buyer demand in Woodstock. That is good for buyers. You're not competing with like everybody in the world to try to buy a home here. Now, keep in mind these numbers are really for like the fall and winter, which is at the time of filming this video. When it comes to the spring, March, April, May, we're going to be seeing buyer demand increase significantly. And so that average 19 days on market is going to go down to maybe 10 or 11 days on market in the spring. And so certainly something to think about. You want to time it right. In the spring, there's a lot more buyer demand and more options for homes. In the fall and winter, there is less buyer demand, but there are less homes for sale, less options. Number 5 on the list of things you should know before moving here is where exactly Woodstock is. This is in Cherokee County, and it's just north of Marietta in the northwest part of Metro Atlanta. About 45 minutes to an hour and 15 from the city of Atlanta. So if you lived in Woodstock and you worked in Atlanta with no traffic, which is very rare, you could get from Woodstock to Atlanta in about 30-45 minutes. With typical rush hour traffic, which is like all of the hours of the day here in Metro Atlanta, you're looking at about an hour to an hour and 15 commute to get to the city of Atlanta. However, most people who live in Woodstock don't work in Atlanta. There are many other cities that are closer to Woodstock where your commute would be much shorter, and there's still enough economy, enough businesses, enough employers so that you don't have to drive all the way to Atlanta. For example, Marietta is a big city with lots of economy, lots of industry, lots of employers. This would only be a 20-minute commute if you lived in Woodstock and worked in Marietta. Much quicker commute. Also, Alpharetta has a very big tech industry. You could get from Woodstock to Alpharetta in 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 45 if the rush hour traffic is really bad. And so much easier to get to some of the surrounding suburbs than it is to get all the way to Atlanta. Number 6 on the list of things you should know before moving here is who lives in Woodstock. The typical like demographics of the people who live here is going to be a lot of families. It's definitely a family friendly area. And then as I live like 10 minutes from Woodstock and regularly in the downtown area, what I tend to see a lot of here is young families, families with young kids in school age, who are here looking for the more affordable homes, the good schools. And so this is really what we see a lot of in especially downtown Woodstock. There may be an older crowd. I mean, Woodstock is a city that has been around for a very long time. And so I'm sure that there is a lot of older folks here, retirees. They might not frequent downtown Woodstock, in the evenings and weekends, which would totally make sense. And so there is some of that as well. But the majority of the folks who live here, I would say, are really young families who are seeking that family-friendly atmosphere. Number 7 on the list is all about the public schools. According to greatschools.org, Arnold Mill Elementary School is a 7 out of 10, Woodstock Middle School is a 6 out of 10, and Woodstock High School is a 7 out of 10. Now, these numbers might not sound amazing, and I'm sure many of the residents who live in Woodstock, if you were to tell them that, they'd be surprised. Many residents here would say that the schools are much better than what those numbers tend to imply. And those numbers are really just from one source, greatschools.org. There are many sources for the ratings of public schools, and they all have a different opinion. And if you asked 100 people about the schools, you'd get 100 different opinions. In my opinion, what I'm seeing is that many parents in this area are very satisfied with the public schools in Woodstock. And just like the city is improving and growing, the schools here are also improving very quickly as more and more people are moving here, and the public is putting more and more pressure on the schools to improve. We're definitely seeing a big improvement in the public schools here in Woodstock. And it can certainly be hard to get a feel for an area and what it's like living there and what the people are like, especially if you're watching a video like this from like another state. state or another country and you're considering moving to Woodstock, but maybe you're like, but what is it really like though? How am I going to fit in? Are the people welcoming? What is the feel of the city? That's certainly something that can be hard to convey in a video. Really, the best way to do it is to come visit in person, make a trip out of it, and see what the areas are like and walk through the streets of downtown Woodstock. If you're not able to do that, I actually made an entire video where I went on a tour of downtown Woodstock, walking through the streets myself so that you can get an idea of the sights and sounds of downtown Woodstock. You can see that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.